All right, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. We are talking to Brooke Rosenfeld. She's a registered dietitian specializing in weight loss through a flexible dieting approach. Brooke and I connected through Instagram, which is how I meet, honestly, most of these amazing coaches that I get to talk to. We're very similar, I think, Brooke, in the way we kind of approach nutrition and fitness and weight loss. But I want to get you on here just to hear your experiences and if you have any tips and strategies that you use that maybe I hadn't thought of. But before we get into all that, I just want to quickly thank you for taking the time and coming on the podcast today.
And John, thank you so much for having me on. I've been following you for a while now. I love your content. I love your podcast and I love your message. I think that your message is very relatable and I like the way that you communicate complex things to general population, make it easy to understand for people. And I don't know, I just really like the way that you communicate the message with people a lot.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. And I feel like
of course,
I've made my mistakes in the past, and I think I take it upon myself to help people avoid the same things that I face. And I'm sure you might, and we can talk about, if you face a similar thing, but I think weight loss and the whole industry as a whole is like, it's made to be more complicated than it actually is. So I think that's what I try with my content, to kind of just simplify it, where it's like, you don't need to worry about so many of these other variables that are always being talked about. It's literally just like hone in on a few things. And I'm going to love to hear kind of how you approach it as well. But before we get into all that, I'd love to know what brought you into the industry. Like, what was the process of you getting your registered dietitian and all that sort of thing? Take us through.
All right. So, I grew up with a mother who was very much into fitness and nutrition. Always had my brother and I outside playing. Like, she always emphasized that with us. So we grew up eating lots of vegetables and fruits, and also she would incorporate more fun stuff. I like to call them fun foods into our day-to-day as well. So I never felt like anything was off limits. I felt like she set a very good example for us as far as providing an environment where, I never felt like anything was going to affect me negatively when I ate it. And I know that a lot of people growing up, like, their mothers may have been on God knows what diets, and it kind of made them feel bad for eating certain foods. And I think that my mom just set a really good example for us. She would wake up in the morning. She would walk every single morning while we were sleeping. I would come downstairs. We'd have she'd have a nice balanced meal for us, always with some kind of vegetable and fruit. I don't know. So I think a lot of the reason why I got into this field was because of her. And also, when I was about 12, 13 years old, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. So getting that diagnosis kind of made me had to, pay a lot closer attention to what I ate versus like most people. And it was funny because my doctors at the time basically told me that I can't eat all the things that I eat now. Like, they were like, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. So I had to learn what worked best for me and how to manage my condition. And exercise and nutrition is, super helpful as far as managing that condition. And I've been very fortunate, John, that I haven't really had many flare-ups throughout this entire time that I've had it. And I never really knew that you could make a career out of my passion for nutrition. I didn't really know that I could do that. So I kind of just, when it came to choosing what I wanted to major in school, I decided, I'm going to be a history teacher. And then I had toyed with the idea of potentially doing interior design. And I was kind of all over the place, but always had this passion for nutrition. And but again, I was like, I didn't know that I could, become a dietitian. And then I had and I don't remember exactly how I realized that I could go to school for nutrition. So I ended up changing my major. I went back to community college to take all the prerequisites I needed to be accepted into school to do dietetics, and applied to Rutgers University, got my degree there for dietetics so I could, take the exam eventually after doing my internship and all that. So here I am.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
For those who don't know what it is, can you explain what colitis does to the body?
Yeah, so it's your like gastrointestinal tract, your colon, like you can have lots of really not so pleasant symptoms, like essentially like if you're going through a flare, it could make it so that essentially everything you eat, not to be TMI, but like comes out quite quickly.
It's like in and out.
Yep, it could be quite horrible. But some people have it really bad. I've been very fortunate in the, sense that it's been a pretty mild case. For some people, it could be very debilitating. So again, I'm very thankful for that. And it's managed with very little medication. At one point, John, I was taking almost 20 pills a day, and now I'm only on 4. So I'm very grateful for
amazing.
that.
Yeah. Is that just, I don't want to say genetics, but like, is that because of how you've been eating over the last little while, or is that just because it just kind of got better on its own? How did you approach that?
Honestly, I know that some people are more like genetically predisposed to getting colitis, I believe. I don't know too. I should probably know more about the condition since I've had it for so long. But I do think that regular physical activity. I mean, even if you don't have like a condition like I do, just like moving around in general can totally be helpful with getting things moving in your digestive tract. Like I'm sure like I'm a huge proponent of walking. Like I love to walk and I promote it with all my clients. And I think not only does it help with your digestion and all that, but with managing stress and just making you feel so much better in general. I mean, as well as like maintaining and achieving a healthier weight. It's just so good to especially do it outside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And get the fresh air and all that.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the conditioned guests, like I try and eat lots of fiber to like, with the nutrients and like to keep things moving in the digestive tract, but also the regular movement I think is super helpful too.
I love it. Yeah. The walking thing is interesting. I was doing a bunch of IG lives with coaches over the last, I think, month now, and we talked about walking a lot, and I feel like it's something that people completely overlook because it does sound like it's too easy to do or too simple, or
I know they're like, that's it.
It's not hard enough. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be hard all the time. I think that's the biggest thing. When it comes to working with clients, is walking, like talking about walking, getting that in a habit, is that one of the first things you do?
Oh, that is like absolutely one of the things that I focus on. I always want to know how their steps are. My clients will like send me screenshots of their steps and stuff like that. And I get so excited because I think that, like you said, people are like, oh, walking, like, oh, like that's so easy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but it is so easy, but it does so much for you and anyone can do it. You don't need a gym membership. I mean, I don't know. People think that this whole weight loss thing needs to be so complicated and like, what specific supplement should I take? And, like they think they should be doing these crazy exercises. Today, I was looking, and I don't know why I did this to myself, but I went on Liver King's Instagram.
Yikes.
Have you ever looked at his Instagram?
A couple times, yeah.
I was just like, oh my gosh. He was eating an actual like a cow tongue that I think was raw.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God. And then, people see things like that. People are on the checkout lines at the grocery store and they see those magazines like Women's World or whatever. And it's like, this bread will boost your metabolism by 900%. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So no wonder people are confused, John. I mean,
the virality of what fitness is becoming is incredibly frustrating, because someone like you will put out an amazing piece of content and it won't get anywhere even close to what some stupid kind of fitness viral thing is happening, which really helps nobody. Like literally, like the stuff I've seen lately is some guy was riding a bike while he was hanging from a squat rack.
I saw that.
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell is going on? So it's like, it's all fun and stuff, but at the same time, like when this stuff goes viral, imagine people who are scared to go to the gym. They're intimidated by the gym, but then they're seeing this, and then they're gonna assume that that's normal, like gym culture. That's kind of thing where people don't really think about like what these posts are doing for the general public. And yes, some of the posts aren't made for them, and I understand that, but at the same time, it becomes like the fitness industry has to be one extreme or the other extreme, or it's like this big spectrums of things where everything happens are on the outside, whereas all the things you need is kind of just right there in the middle, that little tiny kind of spectrum there where you and I kind of live in the Instagram world.
Well, yeah. And I think that so much of what we do, and please like correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you'll agree, is that we're just like constantly trying to tell people like, whoa, no, like it's really a lot more simple than that. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of what I do, something else actually, before I go there, is when I was talking about people being confused, I find it so funny. And I don't know what it's like in Canada as far as like health classes when you're in school and stuff, but I literally I can remember maybe one health class in like our elementary school years, and then maybe like in middle school I had a health class that was taught by my gym teacher that looked like Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I don't know if you've ever seen that cartoon before, but he would like read from a textbook that was probably like 80 years old. And like, you know, we would be in there like throwing paper at each other and like passing notes, and no one's paying, and he didn't know what he was talking about. But like, it upsets me that there's not more of an emphasis placed on teaching people from a young age, like how to like properly eat and how to like, you know, exercise and like what we should do to take care of ourselves. So then we're out in the world and we're just bombarded with all this BS. So to me, I feel like a big part of our job is to kind of like help people like learn like how to care for themselves, like forever, obviously. You know what I mean? I always tell people, I don't want you to have to pay anyone ever again to teach you like how to take care of yourself as far as, you know, like your health and fitness and stuff like that. Like, I just want you to like learn now and put the time in now. And then, because I mean, they don't get a chance to learn that stuff unless you actively seek out being educated, like you and I, you know what I mean? Like, it's just,
it took me years of frustration to finally get to that point of like, I need to learn this for myself. And I'll give you a perfect example because you brought up education. So here in Canada, it's kind of the same. What bothered me was I'll call myself a late bloomer. I didn't know what I wanted to do as a late teen. I played hockey. I was like, let me see where I can go for hockey, how far before I go into post-secondary education. It didn't go anywhere. I went into a general arts program for college until I finally figured out like a couple of years later, like I really like this nutrition and fitness thing. I want to be a trainer. Went to college for that. My nutrition class in college was terrible. It was college, and I was so upset. Here I am. I think I was like 22, 23. Everyone starting the class was like 18 because it was their first year in college. I already had years of reading and experience under my belt. And then I had to go to the nutrition class and learn about the dirty dozen, quote unquote, and a whole bunch of other myths about food. And I was like, this in the Canada Food Guide. Don't even get me started about the food. Like, it just all of this crap. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, this professor can't teach me anything. And I'm not trying to sound arrogant or like a dick, but at this point, I'm like, if you're going to try to tell me to stop eating strawberries, I'm going to friggin' lose it because of the dirty dozen. Yeah. So like, that's my aside story about like education in nutrition here in Canada. Sometimes it's like, I was upset. Like, it was bad.
Oh, I mean, I can say the same thing for like my schooling when I actually went to study nutrition. Honestly, I learned a lot of what I feel that I've learned about nutrition wasn't even really in school. Like I found Lane Norton like many years ago. Like I was like, you know, I was always following him and like reading his stuff and things like that. I actually had gotten a certification from Precision Nutrition because I had been a big fan of John Berardi, and you know, his perspectives. And it really is a shame though. Like, when I went to school, it was so focused on helping people in a clinical setting, which I did work in for about 10 years. But you can't really make as much of an impact as you can with people who are living out in the world. Like when you're working with people who are at the end of their life, don't get me wrong, it's very rewarding. But it's much different. And again, like, you know, at that point in someone's life, like if I'm 90 years old, I'm going to eat ice cream for every single meal.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. It's tough, right? Because like what you're doing now, and I'd love to talk about your shift and how you went away from the clinical to start, I'm assuming, your own business is we want to do more preventative care, I guess is the word you can use.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, like you said, like when I'm an old man, like I look to my grandfather, he's witty, he likes to cook, he's doing his own thing. I want to be that old man, just like I'm going to do whatever I want. Like I've lived 80 years on this planet. Like if I want to have donuts for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'm 80 years old, man. Like you're not going to tell me nothing at this point. Yeah. So, I mean, what transition, like what made you kind of make the shift from where you were at in clinical to starting your own business and being more preventative?
COVID.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
So when COVID hit, I was like, I'm not going into that environment. Like because at first I was like, oh my God, like I have like an immunocompromised, like whatever, like I was like, what's going to happen if I get this, you know, like I was scared. So I transitioned out of that environment and started working for myself. And I mean, I had always kind of felt like that wasn't where I wanted to be anyway. So I guess with like, you know, I made a not so great situation a situation that benefited me, and I tried to like, you know, shift it. So here I am.
Good for you. Yeah. And I mean, the way you're saying it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm in the same boat, is the last 2 years have been crazy to say the least. Like I don't like using that word, but there's been a lot of negativity. So it's almost like if you've had a good last 2 years, you almost feel bad expressing that.
Oh,
right?
Interesting. Yeah.
And I like the last 2 years have been the best years of business I've ever had.
That's awesome.
I've had like my family's grown, like it's been a time of growth, and I'm not trying to brag. I'm also not trying to make other people feel bad, but you know, I'm proud of what I've done. And I think for you, Brooke, you made a choice for yourself, because at the end of the day, nobody's gonna make the choice for you, right? It's either you have to make the decision, or you'd probably be still stuck there, or maybe you would have got COVID, or you know what I mean? Like
who knows?
So I think be proud of the choice. Like I know it's kind of scary kind of think like, yeah, like COVID was a good thing for me. It sounds kind of arrogant because of all the suffering people had, but I think situationally we'll have to kind of focus on what we need to do for ourselves first, because if we don't, who's going to take care of us after?
Absolutely. No. And I don't think it's arrogant at all. I mean, like, it's great that you're, you know, saying that these last 2 years have been great for you, for your business. And like, I feel like, yeah, there's definitely been some tough pockets like for me, but like overall, I feel like I'm so much stronger than I was. And I'm really pleased with the way things are right now. I mean, and I'm getting to do something that I love and look forward to. Like John, one of my clients to me said, she's from California. She's like, I'm going to make it so that I can come meet you like within the next couple of months.
Amazing.
Like, do you know how happy that makes me?
That's amazing.
You know, like I started crying almost. Like it was like super touching, you know, and like to be able to have those kinds of relationships with people, you know, and again, working in a clinical setting, you do develop similar types of relationships, but this is like, you know, and I'm sure you hear this too, like when people say, you know, they message you, oh, I just ate like such and such like for the first time and I didn't feel guilty at all. And like, you know, this was the first holiday season that I didn't gain weight, you know, like things like that, like that's really powerful. Yeah. You know, and I'm sure you hear that all the time too. And like, that makes me feel so good.
It's the best part of the job. And anyone who hasn't run their own business before, it's tough. It's lonely. It's frustrating at times. Like sometimes you feel like you can never stop working, but the minute you get a happy text message from a client, like your whole day shifts. Like someone said like they rocked a bikini for the first time in a decade. I'm like, that makes me the happiest person ever. Because I think what people don't understand about coaches such as yourself, we care about your results more than you sometimes. No bullshit. Like if you're winning, we're winning, obviously. So if you're smiling, we're smiling. I think Brooke is explaining like that message from someone who wants to come see you from California to Connecticut. Like it's a big deal.
It's like, I can't even explain. Like when she told me, she was like, no, don't cry. I'm like, I just like, I don't know. It just means so much to me. And you know, I think something else that I wanted to talk about too is like something that I feel I do often, and I'm sure you do too, is when people feel like they're not doing well, but they are actually doing awesome, and you kind of get to spin that for them and get them to see things in a different way. And they're just like, oh my God. Like I had this one lady recently, and she has been kind of staying where she is for quite a while now, but also her life is like kind of being flipped upside down right now. She might move to another state. You know, she hasn't been feeling well, things like that. Like she's had some health issues. And I told her, I was talking to her yesterday, and I was like, dude, like your weight is stable. You're not gaining. Like in the past, like, you know, maybe when people were having some tumultuous times in their life, like maybe their weight would start to creep up. But I always like to emphasize with people, I'm like, the fact that you're maintaining is so huge. And they're like, oh yeah, I never thought of it that way. I'm like, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like that to me is like, that's so important. So yeah, I don't know where I started going.
No, I love that. Yeah.
I think
you're shifting people's mindsets about things. And that brings us back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Like we're so programmed to think a certain way about weight loss, about nutrition, about fitness. Like we always have to be losing or we're not doing well. You know, if the scale doesn't move for 2 weeks, it doesn't mean you're not doing well. Maintenance is not a bad thing. And I think sometimes it just takes a lot of reprogramming on our end to just help people see like, yeah, you maintain your weight for 2 weeks, but you could have gained weight over the past 2 weeks, or like, look at what your life has been like for the past 2 weeks. Like the fact that like you said, you didn't gain is huge. I think it's so overlooked because we get focused on what the goal is, what we want to see at the end. And I guess sometimes people feel like if it's not heading in that direction, like clearly, then we're stuck. But you're helping them see that that's not really the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's always important to remind them, like, do you remember where you came from? Do you remember where you started? Do you see all the progress that you've made? And the fact that this same woman, she didn't track her food like all last week.
Yeah.
But the fact that her weight like basically stayed where it is, I'm like, you are making probably much more overall balanced choices and you don't even realize it. Do you know what I mean? And to me, I tell people, it's like, you know, there's no like perfect targets and stuff, you know, for you to hit. So to me, tracking is so important as far as just like learning how to balance out your plate so that you're getting adequate protein and stuff like that. And you're learning the proper portion sizes for your body, your needs, whatever. So I think that, and I love tracking for that reason. And, you know, it's more so like the awareness and education component that you don't get. Like how are you supposed to learn how to eat for your individual needs?
Yeah. You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. Tracking is a skill building exercise. That's how I position it for people, because it's, if you download a meal plan, or if you hire a quote unquote coach who gives you a meal plan, which is not a coach, you're not learning anything. You're learning to follow a meal plan. So it's the same thing of like when we were in school, and I'm sure everybody did this, you cram for that test and you memorize as much as you could. You finish the test. As soon as that test was finished, you forgot everything you just I did that. I've done that. Yeah, no shame. Meal plans are the exact same thing. You're just focused on like, hey, what am I eating? What am I eating? What am I eating? Not learning anything about portion sizing, satiety, how are you feeling? How's your energy? It's just like, no, I'm going to eat tilapia 6 days a week and broccoli, and then I'll be good after 12 weeks. Well, like, no, it's something that I've really in the language I use with people on their first calls, I tell them like, we're taking back the term meal plan because I think it gets a bad rap for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I'm helping you build your own meal plan. You're going to pick foods you like. I'm going to help steer you in kind of the right directions for proteins and vegetables, fruits. But at the end of the day, if you're creating a meal plan that you enjoy, it's not a meal. It's not a diet. You're eating, which is what Brooke, that's what we're after.
Yes. And that's why I love your messaging so much, because it is so similar to mine. I feel, you know, I'm constantly seeing and, you know, on Facebook groups and stuff like that, you know, oh yeah, I spend a lot of time just giving like free advice in Facebook groups. And it's heartbreaking, some of the things I see, and I really try and help as many people as I can.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact like that people think like, I see, oh, I was bad, I ate a donut today, my whole day is ruined. And I'm like, no, like it's okay to eat a donut. Donuts are awesome. You
Mm-hmm.
have a donut on your logo.
Hey,
I love that. Love it. But you know, people just have this misconception of like good and bad foods, and like they need to cut out everything they love. And then what that does is just lead them to overeating those foods because they're gonna eat them. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a matter of time. And then when they do, it's like game over. You know what I mean? It's like, like they just,
they can't help themselves.
And I just wish that, I'm sorry, I think I just cut you off.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm like on fire right
Yeah.
now. But you know, I think it is just like, it's so heartbreaking to me that people feel so badly for eating foods that aren't quote unquote clean. I hate that term. I want people to see that all foods like really can truly fit in moderation, and that by cutting them out, it's not going to do any good for you. And
no,
it's just so frustrating.
I don't know. I've done the Facebook groups thing, but I just end up getting upset because
yes,
there will be some people that like will actually listen to our potentially unsolicited advice. But then there's going to be people who are like, we'll just tunnel vision and like, we are wrong and they're right, no matter what we say. And
yeah.
I can't, like, I don't have the mental capacity in my life right now to like argue with people on the internet about stuff. If they come to my content and argue, I'm game, because that just boosts my algorithm, helps me. But the Facebook group thing, like I've gotten booted from groups for saying certain things, and like, if you don't want help, I can't help. Like that's, at the end of the day, that's kind of how I look at it sometimes, is some people just, they don't want to hear it because they have whatever they want in their mind is the truth, and whatever we say means nothing. So I'm like, okay, well, if you want to live, struggle, go through it, I'm here if you ever want actual like advice.
Oh yeah, no. And there are people that will try and like say like, oh, you're wrong. And like, there are bad foods and I just don't even respond. I'm like, okay. I'm like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly. But so like going back to tracking though, and I do get a little aggravated sometimes when I feel like there's this whole, and I hope it's okay that I bring this up, but this whole like anti-tracking movement, or like, you know, that it's like, it's so compulsive and like disordered and all that stuff. And I feel like a lot of the people that say these things, you know, and I mean, a lot of dietitians say these things, and it's a little frustrating to me because these people have gone and studied food for how many years, probably have tracked themselves, and people who have like done bodybuilding competitions and blah, 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 all, you know, anyone who's speaking against tracking, who has so much knowledge around portion sizes, what they eat and stuff like that. I'm kind of like, it kind of bothers me a lot of it actually. Absolutely. You know, and I feel like the ultimate goal would be to not have to track, John, like eventually. But for someone who just has no freaking idea what they're eating, what portion sizes are, how to read a label, all that stuff, I think that tracking is it's so good. And you can do it for like, you could get a food scale for what, $10 on Amazon, download MyFitnessPal for free, and truly teach yourself how to eat. And what works best for you.
It's education. Like, I think it's incredibly frustrating because you think that these people who've been there, done that almost, like, do you understand that calories exist no matter what we feel about them? It's literally just, that's the scientific fact that they exist. It's the same thing. Like, I love the analogy when it comes to money and calories, because most of the money that we spend is invisible. It doesn't exist in our hands all the time. Food does, and the calories do. If you're trying to pay down debt, you're paying attention to the dollars you're spending, or you're trying to put some aside so you don't spend it all. If you're trying to lose body fat, how are you going to know if you're going to be on your way to that goal if you're unaware of how much you're eating? Like, that, to me, that's the bottom line. It's literally, that's all I start with if someone was to like tell me that not to track or whatever. I'm like, you need to know the data, because if you don't, you're going to spend double, triple, quadruple the time guessing and being frustrated and give up. If you went to a financial advisor to save up for a house or to cut down your debt, they're going to tell you to track your spending and your income.
But that's okay. But
that's fine. But why is it not okay for food? You know what I mean? Like, food is emotional ties, but so does money. And people can never tell me that money doesn't have emotional ties. So it's like, why do we have this kind of like disorder thing about tracking food, but there's no disorder thing about tracking our spending?
No, it's a good point, really. So like, that's, something that I wanted to bring up, because it kind of just, I'm just like, you know what, that's not right. And there are people who probably shouldn't be tracking, like if they do have some kind of eating disorder, of course, but for like most people, I mean, it's a heck of a lot better than doing something like Weight Watchers or keto or whatever other kind of fad. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever other fad diet there is out there, where nothing is off limits. You can literally eat anything you want. Granted, I would like someone to have like a good amount of protein within their calories, but I mean, I think that tracking is awesome.
Yeah, I call it structured flexibility. Yeah, you can eat, like, if you can have a donut today and you can have a donut tomorrow, but you want to have some proteins, you want to have fruits and vegetables. And I like that you brought up earlier that I didn't touch on, is like, whatever coach you're working with, whether it's me or Brooke or someone else, and we want you to track your calories, we don't want you to track forever. Like,
no.
I don't have to track my calories forever. Like, if I'm in a specific fat loss phase and I need to dial in my numbers, then yeah. But I've used MyFitnessPal off and on for a long time now. I think it's been like a decade, where like I can look at a plate of food and I can pretty much guess the calories and protein that's on it. And that's what I want for people. But that doesn't happen through meal plans or restrictive diets or just out of the blue. You have to build the knowledge and education of like, how many ounces is that plate of chicken? And how many calories is that? It's almost like a test. Yep. Once you can kind of build that stuff up, and that's where like the whole intuitive eating thing comes into play. Like, you can't intuitively eat until you have the education behind what you're eating. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like this woman was talking to me the other day about that. She's like, I think I want to work with you because like I've been intuitively eating and I just keep gaining weight. And I'm like, oh, like, yes, I've worked with a lot of people who have, but I think also too, that the intuitive eating message gets a little misconstrued away from like what it was actually like meant for. And I'm not by any means an intuitive eating dietitian. I don't fully understand like all the different steps and stuff like that. But I think that again, like sometimes that people misconstrue that, and it's not really just like eat whatever you want, however much you want. Like, I think there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
But I think that someone who maybe comes across like an Instagram reel where someone's promoting it and maybe, they misconstrue what that means, because it's really hard to listen to your body when your body is like kind of all messed up and, you've been, I don't know what the word would be. I mean, I guess it's like confused. I mean, being bombarded with all the different horrible like things out there, the information that's out there. So, yeah.
I think intuitive eating also was never made for weight loss.
No,
that
not
whole,
at all.
No. So that's where people are using that to lose weight. Like that's not it. Like, that's not the way to do it. And the other thing, since we're on the topic of like Instagram and stuff, something that I've become more and more kind of aware of, and I don't think I've done it in over 3 years, and I won't anymore, is a what do I eat in a day post.
I hate those. I actually made a reel about it the other day, and
Did
I got
you?
like, yeah, I did. I was just like, what I eat in the day as a registered dietitian. I was like, these reels are stupid, like
Nice.
blah, blah, blah. Because everyone is different. They have different, tastes, they have different needs. Like, how is me showing you what I eat gonna help you? It's
Well,
kind of
they're
like,
gonna copy what you eat, though. No, isn't it the secret to success? No. Hmm.
I mean, but it's silly to me. And so I will never do one of those posts. And I'm glad that you brought that up.
No.
Because
Yeah,
I
it's
think they're silly.
they're as arbitrary to me as those like swipe workouts where it's like do these ab exercises, and I'm like, but why? What is the reason, right? What is so like the what I eat in a day is become like, let me flex for you or show you how lean I am, and then show you all the foods I could eat at this body. But what they don't tell you is that they've been doing this for 10 plus years and they've struggled for 6 of them. And maybe they had an eating disorder and maybe they faced this. And you know what I mean? So but you can't pack that into a 30-second reel or 60, right? You
No.
just give people the face value of like, oh, so this person's lean, they have a big butt, but they can eat, sugar and they can have this and that. And they're like, okay, I'm going to do what they're doing.
Yep.
And then we go back to the beginning of this conversation of like, people are just, they're confused because if they get 10 different messages on any given day, and 10 messages will happen in the span of like 5 minutes now on Instagram. So it's like,
Oh,
what do they even do next?
no, I know. And I think that, and I know that people have, they may hesitate to pay money to work with a coach, but I think that it's probably like one of the best investments that someone can make to like truly, like, yes, you are going to have to spend money to do that, but you are going to get so much benefit for the rest of your life after working with this person if they're a good coach.
Mhm.
And there's so many great ones and there's so many maybe not so great ones.
Yeah.
But, like I think that it's such an important investment to make into yourself rather than like spending all these money, like or this money on like, different like, I mean, the scary detox crap I see on TikTok.
Yeah.
Or like whatever pills, whatever snake oil, like whatever BS, you know what I mean? Or you could like pay for Noom, and like I've heard that that's like very robotic, and or whatever other programs out there that are like total crap. You know what I mean? I think that it's such a great investment. And I wish that people would see the value in that. And I always tell people when they sign up to work with me, I'm like, I'm really proud of you for making this investment in your health and in your future. Because it's huge. Like that's a huge thing to do. And I think it's awesome when people do that and they see the value in working with someone like us.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And it's so much more than weight loss too, right? Like if someone works with me for 3 months or 6 months, like I want to set them up. You said it before, is set them up so they can live healthily, eat without tracking, or stop guilting yourself into food, and you don't have to worry about doing 6 hours a week of cardio or whatever else it might be. But it's us helping guide them. But at the end of the day, and I have to always say this, is you still have to do the work. Like that's the key here. The coach will not do the work for you. We will push you when we can. We will guide you. We'll give you the layout. We'll give you the blueprint, but you still got to do it, right? So swiping all day long, following swipe workouts and following what I eat in a day posts, you can do that for a while, or you can hop on a plan that's made for you, but you still got to do the work. That's the key.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that.
That's my disclaimer for coaching. I was going to say something. I forget what it is now. I think it was about red flags about coaches, but now I don't remember that's what I had. So I had a client join me recently and she was a part of Noom. And she quickly quit Noom because they had her at 1,200 calories.
I think everyone gets put on 12.
She's over 200 pounds and they want her to have 1,200 calories. And I was like, first thing I said to her, I'm like, we're going to have you eating more guaranteed. Like that's bullshit. I feel so bad for people because like she's tried every other thing under the book. She's tried everything. And it was like Noom is the hot thing or whatever. And I'm like, that's not it. Like we need to eat, you have to eat more calories. And like I set up her calories today, she's gonna be starting eating more. She tried that. She's spending hundreds of dollars a month on supplements. And I'm like, I said, no disrespect to you, but 90% of those things you just listed are bullshit. Like they've sold you into crap. I'm like, I'll recommend like 3 things: whey protein, vitamin D, especially for those of us who don't get sun year round. Yeah. Maybe some omega-3s, and potentially creatine monohydrate for some, but not necessarily for everyone. That's it. Like everything else, I don't know about your thoughts, Brooke, but everything else to me is like, don't even waste your money.
Oh no, I completely agree. I see it all the time, like in different groups or whatever, like all these different things that people recommend. They're always asking like, oh, like what pre-workout should I take and all that. I'm like, dude, how's your sleep?
Yeah.
How are you sleeping? And also coffee is fine, I think personally, but you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, and that's something that I really enjoy doing too, is like when I see people are like, I can't stop snacking. What are some healthy snacks? I'm like, eat more freaking protein and maybe eat more throughout the day so you're not so snacky at night. I'm like, let's look at the root cause here.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah.
Have more than one egg and a small cup of yogurt for breakfast.
Oh my God. When I see the things people eat, I'm like, no wonder you're freaking hungry at night.
My 17-month-old can eat 2 eggs in one sitting. So if you're a 35-year-old woman, you need to eat more than 2 eggs in one sitting. And this is like, Brooke and I, we're not mad at you. We're not trying to be dicks, but like we're frustrated because we know everyone can be doing better. That's why we get so like amped up, because it can be so much better for everyone out there. If you have no energy throughout the day, eat a full breakfast. Like and I'm not talking about go to a buffet or anything, but like if you look at your plate and your plate's not even full, whether it's with fruits or proteins or starch, whatever, eat more food. And simply put, like just have more at breakfast, have more of what you're already eating. You will notice a difference right away.
Oh yeah. And John, I'm sure that you notice with, you know, people that you work with when they are tracking that you'll see their protein and you're just like they're just not eating enough protein. So that's like something that I always like emphasize, like right off the bat. I'm like, we got to get your protein up because that's going to help them feel more full. But anyway, yeah, I always like to kind of like when people ask questions and things like that, I want to get a little bit deeper and see like, okay, like what's really going on. So I feel like that's a lot of what our job entails as well.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point. Like anyone who doesn't know what coaching is, it's much more than just giving you a workout program and telling you how to eat. Like we have to dig in, like we have to know what's going on. Are you stressed? Are you sleeping? Like, do you have a vacation coming up? Do you have like, what's your work hours like? Like when someone wants to sign up with you, Brooke, like how do you kind of, you take them through a phone call, you take them through a consultation, you do both, you just like dig into what's going on?
Yeah, I will have them fill out my application and then we'll jump on the phone and a Zoom call like this. And, you know, I'll just ask them like some questions about like, you know, I want to know like, what their work schedule is like, how they sleep. I want to know like, you know, how they've been generally eating throughout the day. Like, I want to know their consistency, like what they feel they're struggling with. And we kind of go back and forth and see if like we'd be a good fit to work together and stuff like that. But I kind of want to just get a general idea of like where they feel that they're struggling most. I hope that answers your question.
100%. Yeah, you meet them where they're at.
Oh yeah. I mean, and like not everyone wants to track at first. And I totally am open to doing more behavioral approaches with people to start off with. But I mean, ideally, I would like most people to track, like if they are willing and able, just because I think that there's so much that comes with that. But yeah, it really is a matter of meeting someone where they're at and making sure that they understand not to take on too much at once. I will have people focus on max like 3 things at a time. And then once that becomes easier, we can always build on that. But I think that people tend to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go hard. I'm going to do like 9 million things at once. And I'm going to change my entire life or like whatever 75 hard is and stuff. I've had people who have like done that. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, but that's like the mentality, you know, it's like all or nothing, which I feel like we're constantly fighting against. But I think people need to set themselves up for success and not feel overwhelmed by just keeping it simple. And then as things start to feel more habitual, build on that from there and increase the intensity.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't have to overhaul your entire life just to, you know, get in shape. You want to keep the habits going. And that's what you're alluding to. Like with Brooke, it sounds like you're starting with protein, you're starting with walking, maybe sleep or hydration is probably another big one, depending on the person.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be like clean out your cupboards and do all this other crazy shit. Like that's not that's not what long-term fitness is. That's what like Instagram fitness is. It's like the extreme of like, yeah, this person's going. That's not it. Any client I've seen the most success with me, it's consistency. It's the boring stuff. And I tell people all the time, like fitness and on the whole, like the journey's boring. The results are amazing, but the journey's boring because it's supposed to be. Do you get excited to wake up every morning and like brush your teeth and do your hair, do it? Not really. You just do it. Yep. Okay, well, fitness, like you excited to eat protein every morning? Well, maybe you are, and that's cool. I'm not. It's breakfast. And workouts, sometimes they suck. Sometimes I feel like the Hulk. It is what it is. They're workouts, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of like you're saying, it's kind of like doing the same stuff constantly, consistently, keep doing those simple things. And then in time, you're going to get where you want to go. And then too, I guess once you continue down the path, maybe your goals shift a little bit. Maybe you're like, oh, like I really am enjoying like getting really strong in the gym. Maybe your goals shift completely, like who knows?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that a lot of what I do with people is kind of just trying to get them to shift their mindset, trying to get them to feel, what am I trying to say? Like, I don't know, see things a different way.
Yeah.
Try and simplify things and just help them understand that the only true failure is when they just throw in the towel completely.
Love it.
And I always ask them when they check in is like what they're proud of this week. I want to know one thing that they're proud of.
Yep. Small wins add up. And I think people overlook them because they're like, if they didn't lose 2 pounds this week, like it wasn't a good week. And like, no, like if you hit your protein target, that's a huge win. Like that's big because that stuff, you don't feel it in the moment. There's no instant gratification from it, but over time, like the compounding effect from getting your protein in every day or hitting your calories every day, like that's what's going to provide the result you want to see at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. When it comes to there's one of two topics, is either someone who has a history of yo-yo dieting or the all or nothing, I guess we can call it too. Yeah. How do you get them to shift into being okay with a more flexible approach when they're usually stuck in that like kind of good food, bad food, clean, dirty mind?
I mean, it's not always easy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that again, like tracking, when they see that, like, as long as, like, for me, like I said, like they're getting adequate protein and then they start to fit in like, oh, carbs. A lot of people are like terrified of eating carbs, and it's heartbreaking. It is, but I understand because of, again, all the crappy information that's out there. I actually saw a doctor say that vegetables are vegetables are bad for people. Like I've been seeing that a lot recently, and I'm just like, huh? Yeah. But anyway, I digress. I guess, like, when we can help someone learn how to balance out their plates, that they understand, like, oh, like carbs, like, oh, I can eat them and like they give me energy and like I feel awesome when I eat them. Yeah. And it's a matter of just them understanding that as long as we can find like a good balance for them, I think that, like, I don't know, the tracking really helps people kind of see that, like, it's okay. And like, nothing is off limits. And like, yes, it does take time. And some people are a little apprehensive at first, or a lot apprehensive at first, but in time, I think there's nothing better, John, than when someone truly feels okay eating those foods that they were afraid to eat before.
It's the best feeling.
No better feeling. I went to my kid's birthday party. I had cake. I was able to enjoy myself on vacation and not feel bad afterwards. Things like that. I was able to go on date night with my husband, and like, I haven't felt good about doing that. I haven't eaten pasta in months, and I was able to eat pasta and I still hit my targets. Yes. Like, those are all awesome things.
Mm-hmm. And they're overlooked because, again, that's not instant gratification on the scale or with photos, but like as a lifestyle, you have more energy. I think a client said a few weeks ago, she came in wanting to do more of a low carb, higher fat, because I think she said she had Crohn's. I'm like, okay, well, we'll go. And I'm like, it was 2 weeks in, like she was tracking, and I was looking at her MyFitnessPal diary, and she was eating more carbs than she planned to. And I was like, I told her in her feedback, I'm like, how are you feeling? Because I'd like to run with this right now. Because if you're feeling good, keep it up because you need the carbs. She's doing a duathlon in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then a check-in form a couple weeks later, she's like, yeah, this is the best I've ever felt. I have so much energy and I'm eating carbs. I'm like, this is amazing, because she was told she had to eat low carb, but she's also running and biking and weight training, and she's on her feet all day working. Like, you need the energy. Like, having a diet that's 80% fat is not going to help you feel good in the slightest. Like, I don't apologize. It's true for 90% of people out there. Carbohydrates are your friend. They are not your enemy. Eating too much of them in one sitting can be your enemy if you let it, because people say, hey, like, carbs, I feel bad when I eat them. And it's usually just because they eat too much.
Well, eating too much of anything will kind of make you feel like,
there's that too,
know. But yes, carbs are our friend and they are delicious. Eat your carbs, please.
Well, the thing too is, like, they are easier to overeat.
Yes.
Like, I'll never, unless I go to like a Brazilian steakhouse, like, I'm not going to get overly full on like steak or chicken, because it's like, I'll have my portion, I'm good. But like, I can sit there and eat like 2 bowls of pasta, no problem. Or like my grandmother's lasagna. But like, doesn't mean that lasagna is bad because I feel full and bloated after. It's because I had probably 1,000 calories worth of pasta in one sitting, which, no matter where that 1,000 calories is coming from, sitting down and eating that much in one sitting, you're going to feel bad regardless of where it comes from. If it's fat, protein, carbs, doesn't matter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love it. We got 5 minutes left or so, Brooke. I'd love to hear. I like to ask for golden nuggets from guests at the end of the podcast. So anything you could drop for the audience. And you dropped a lot of gems already today. If you have anything else you'd love to leave the audience with on this podcast, I'd love to hear it.
Yes. So my golden nugget would be, something is always better than nothing. So, and this is something that I stress with everybody. I say it in my content a lot, because I feel like, again, it's that all or nothing thing. It's like, well, if your day is like really crappy, or maybe you don't have the full 30 minutes for your workout, maybe you only have 10 or whatever, like, always remember that doing something is going to be better than nothing. And when you feel like nothing is going right or whatever, remember what your big rocks or your anchors or whatever you want to call them are. Remember to move when you can. Remember to stay hydrated. Get protein in most of your meals. Try and get some vegetables, get some fruit, try and get enough sleep. So that would be my golden nugget.
I love it. Thanks for that, Brooke. For anyone who doesn't know how to reach you, this is shameless plug time with the podcast. Where can they find you, Brooke?
You can find me on Facebook, Brooke Rosenfeld on Facebook, and also on Instagram, Well Balanced with Brooke.
I love it. Thank you again so much for taking the time. Always love chatting with you. It's nice to finally kind of sit and have a full discussion. We'll probably do a part 2 to this later on this year.
I would love to.
Sure.
It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brooke. For anyone listening, thank you for listening. Go and follow Brooke right now, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.